be African American, grabbed Angel Reese by the throat and threw her to the floor. Flagrant 2, ejected from the game. The reason why that doesn't spark as much conversation isn't just that Caitlin Clark is a bigger star than Alyssa Thomas. It's because it's a black-on-black incident,
Wow.
and you don't have you don't have that dynamic that people can comment on, yes, but also exaggerate and make the entire story sometimes.
And also,
Well, that is really that is between
no
the
one
lines.
cared about the
here.
WNBA when women of a certain color were beating up and bruising each other, because it's been happening since the league's inception. We have this star, this person that people love, they want to protect her. So now the new fans and the new analysts and the new people have so much to say. Bob, thank you for saying that and acknowledging that, because you're a legend in this sport. And you are also gracious enough to say, look, I'm not an expert in the WNBA, but what I do know from the history and what I do know, this is why she is being treated this way, and why no one cares about
I've seen it in every sport.
I mean,
a newcomer is tested and to some extent resented.
I mean, what's wrong with players being aggressive to a certain degree,
but not the way
competitive?
way Kennedy Carter was. That was a flagrant foul.
There's a process for that, and the game handles that by penalizing the player.
Sure.
Why does it have to be jealousy?
That's what I have asked this question. I'm sorry, I'm livid. My blood is boiling. I've been so angry about this topic all day, because it's so simple to make women versus women a conversation, but it's just so simple. There should be more layers to this sport. If you're really going to welcome yourself to the WNBA and cover it and talk about it, can we be more than just jealous? Can there be some real true competition? Can they just be athletes?
I know you're speaking generally, because I didn't where I'm coming
that's
from.
not where you're coming from at all. He and I have had this conversation, and I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Why
I do.
I don't know. Why is it so simple?
I think it'd be foolish to say that resentment and jealousy are not part of the mix, because those are human emotions.
Sure.
But to elevate that above everything else and discard everything else in a complicated dynamic, that's the wrong way to go.
Correct.
I ain't talking about nothing. Nothing special there.
Let's move, though. Let's go to Caitlin Clark. She played games over the weekend. In a win over Chicago, she got simply shoved to the ground off the ball. The foul was upgraded later to a flagrant 1. Yesterday, Clark made only 1 shot, scored only 3 points as New York beat Indiana by
no one talked about it.
6 points. Wilbon, where do you want to start?
You know, Tony, I don't want to start with a game, a specific game or a specific number of points. Oh, just 3 points. I don't. Because the discussion about Caitlin Clark needs to be much larger than that. And it needs to be much more nuanced. And it needs to be honest, and it's not honest. It just isn't. You have people with all kinds of agendas, and people are afraid. And on your podcast this morning, I talked about how angry I am about national media, which only wants to write about analytics and doesn't want to get into substantive things that are sensitive, that might be the third rail. Everyone's afraid to touch. We're not going to be afraid here. The discussion about Caitlin Clark has to deal with, and I mean initially and loudly, race and culture in America. That's part of this. And basketball is the place, Tony, where it's more often discussed historically. Yes, it started maybe with Jackie Robinson and with certain prize fighters, Jack Johnson, but it's been a basketball discussion. When it was about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and the sort of enemies they were before they became deep and abiding their friendship. But I mean, I remember with Spike Lee, an important part of his movie making dealt with Bird and dealt with a white star basketball player in America, because there ain't one on the male side. It's Caitlin Clark. And it's okay for people to admit that they identify with some. I identify with people, maybe part of why I identify with Edmonton, or people like Evander Kane and Darnell Nurse, who are people of color. And so it's okay to identify that. You're not going to find that white American star in men's basketball. Caitlin Clark is that. And she brings people into the tent because she's great and she's unique. In this case, she's white in a sport of black people. That's part of...
Is that what it is, though? Is that what has... Whatever.
Part of the deal.
No
a big
argument
part.
on any of that.
Elephant in the room.
No. So here's the thing. I've watched, I think, part of or all of almost every game she has played in the...
I think that she would get more acclaim if she was like let's just say a traditionally attractive woman. Like if she was like a supermodel looking woman in the WNBA and getting buckets. You look at like Skylar Diggins, Kysir Godric. There's plenty of players that have been conventionally attractive that get a lot of limelight. I mean, Liz Cambridge even stopped playing bro, like, no. Granted, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with basketball, but I feel like this claim that we're making, because she's successful, is because she's white, is why she's getting opportunities. I guess so, but I think that's just the nature and the trend of the belly of the beast. I mean, Breonna Stewart is a baller. Does she have her own shoe yet? Aja Wilson's a baller. Now she is a woman of color. She does not have her own shoe. But we got Sabrina, who ended up with her own shoe and an opportunity to shoot against Stephen Curry. I guess you could make the claim, maybe the color of her skin, but this is also someone who had smoked the record for the WNBA three-point. Like, so there's like still performance there. The same thing with Caitlin Clark. She smoked every record in college. And there became a drama between her and LSU and some of the other teams. I don't solely think it's because she's white. Yes, I guess you can make the claim that it's because she is a white woman in a league that is predominantly women of color. I don't think, though, that has the same weight that everybody is talking about, because it would be one thing if she was this woman without the accolades, but she has every accolade, beat every record, and is still performing at a high level, and people are still going to go check out her seats. Because I think, she's ushering in a new style. That's just what it is. You have shifty guards, you have guys that can score, you have physical guards, you have athletic guards, and we have Caitlin Clark, who doesn't seem to care about pulling from 30, 40 feet night in and night out. So something about her was star power. From college ranks, from her breaking records to where she's at now.
WNBA. I watched both games over the weekend. She is being deliberately hit, and let me stress, deliberately. Sure. It's a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more sinister than just a hard welcome to a new league. It appears that the intent sometimes is to injure her. And what's particularly disconcerting is when somebody who knocks her down is welcomed back by her teammates saying, yeah, congratulated, basically. It leads to two conclusions, Mike. One is the Indiana teammates, when are they going to stand up for Caitlin Clark? Because they have not done that yet. When are they going to do that? Or else they're saying to Caitlin Clark, we don't have your back.
They're also a team full of losers. With all due respect, they have not won games. You pick up losing habits. So there aren't things that would pick up in order to allow you to win. Also, they have a very short introduction to the season. A lot of these players, this is not even their primary team. It's a secondary team. So look, guys, I'm just hooping here just because this might be my off season, and I'm hooping with y'all. So I think that there's got to be a different dynamic that allows them to come together. You still got players getting cut, heading into the season. So I think it's a lot going on.
If they don't have her back physically, why is she playing on that team? And two, is there a living, breathing commissioner in the WNBA? Because if there is, that person has to say to all the players in the WNBA and all the coaches in the WNBA, hey, we're not going to have this anymore. We're going to make sure you understand these fouls are flagrant fouls. They're going to lead to ejection. If they happen more than once, they're going to lead to suspension. This season cannot be the hazing of Caitlin Clark. And Mike, you and I both talked about this at length, and we understand.
I agree with that.
But there's a lot of resentment of Caitlin.
Like, our league is full of too much talent to have the centerpiece of discussion being y'all are bullying this number one pick. There's too much talent to allow the media narrative to become this. We'd rather have y'all beat her by 40 points, have somebody drop 30, if that's going to be the message you want to send. Fouling her and doing all this other stuff, yeah, you can argue it gets under people's skin, and we've got physical aggressors and everything like that. And in that era, I think in basketball, is just over with. I think in sports, period, it's just over with. Like Draymond doing, throwing elbows, stuff like that, he's done. They booted him for a good chunk of the season, ruined the Warriors' season. Ja Morant, he brandished a weapon on Instagram. They booted him for almost half the season. I mean, we're talking about a quarter of the season he lost. Completely turned the Memphis Grizzlies season upside down. So we talk about that in the men's game. I think in the women's game, I would doubt that people would even care too much to see some of that extra stuff too. Sure, it's part of the game, and sure, there's going to be plays that happen, but that can't be the narrative and focal point. That's what the media wants to run with. That's what the media wants to run with. But there's just too much talent in order to be the center point of discussion.
Caitlin Clark and how
Yes.
famous she is and how popular she is and how much money she makes off the court. Because everybody in the league wants that. Raise your hand. Everybody in the league wants that. But people in the league have to realize also that the eyeballs are on the league right now because of Caitlin Clark. So you can beat her in a game because you know what? She's not great now. She is not great now.
Right,
You
right.
tie her up in the game, that's fine. You just can't try to hurt her.
But Tony, you're not going to legislate this. It's never legislated. That resentment that you described is what we have to get at. And people don't want to get at it, or they get at it clumsily, or they're not sophisticated enough to understand the resentment, why it's there, and how it's going to have to play out. Tony is going to have to play out on the court. There's no commissioner who's going to legislate that, the hard fouls, and if there is resentment and over what, there's going to have to be discussion. And there's not honest, candid discussion. So you know what?
Not yet.
We're going
Not
to
yet.
have this. And I'm not for flagrant foul, okay, you can call that. That's taken care of on the court. And her teammates, I hear you on all that. But guess what? I told you when this was going on in Iowa, I was not the real basketball world. I lived next door all my life. I grew up there in Illinois. Now Caitlin Clark's in the real basketball world. Just like Larry Bird was in it. And he had to navigate it. And it took like much of his career. And then it went away, didn't it? Because of what happened on the court organically.
Well,
Caitlin Clark's going to have to get to that point, Tone.
There's a substantial difference.
What?
Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came into this league and immediately were great players.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
She is not immediately a great player. There is a difference.
Okay, not yet. Not yet.
Man, what do y'all think, bro? Are we talking too much about them? Are we not focusing on the hoopers? Is there a conversation that needs to be had in regards to how the players, particularly, let's say, Megan Stallion, how she's being treated? What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments, man. Because I think it's at a crazy place. Sorry, guys, got caught up. Anyways, I don't know. It's a lot going on. A lot of discussions, a lot of topics. Let's see what she said.
All jokes aside, I do want to address the end of that clip. I genuinely was surprised by the reaction. And I did not intend to make it personal. But when I look at Stephen A. and my relationship with Stephen A., he the head honcho at ESPN as far as I'm concerned.
Yes,
and I have been in this
absolutely.
women's basketball space for so long and have been privy to many a conversation, pushing and pitching and asking for space. So as from where I sit, if SA says, let's talk about it, it's going to be discussed, right?
Right.
He and I have had a conversation tonight. Okay, cool. There are things at play that maybe I did not consider when I made that statement. But what I do stand by is that the way that the WNBA is being covered in this season just started in May, this particular season is at a different fervor and tenor than it was 3 years ago. Now, whatever factors go into that, be that as it may. But 3 years ago, we were not having these conversations about the WNBA as we are now. And that is just a fact.
That's why in the same breath, we also have to congratulate Caitlin Clark for what she's done for the women's game. And not just her, but your Angel Reese's and your Rickies. There's plenty of new talent that's brought us into the WNBA. We've got players that are returning to the WNBA for previous seasons that are now receiving that juice and push. And I think it's also an ascension of a lot of what we've seen. I think a lot of people have become privy to the WNBA following the Las Vegas Aces back-to-back championships. I mean, being able to see some of their personality off the court. You know, some viral social media moments with them. I think that's been the thing. We've seen large support coming from the NBA players, right? And celebrities and other people showing up to games. I think that it's been trending in that direction because of the things that we've seen. We've seen the support coming from Kobe Bryant. So there's a lot, I think, that led up to this point.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't have this conversation 3 months ago.
Fair enough.
But you said, Monica, it's never too late to do the right thing.
Absolutely. And I think that some people be like, oh, nobody was talking about, like you. I heard you at the end of that show. You lucky Molly had to go to break. You talking about Monica, you proving his point because nobody was talking about Caitlin Clark after 3 years ago. I heard your old Southern ass back there. Now, this is where we have to really argue and tussle with this idea of cart before the horse or horse before the cart, right? And I know we don't have TV work, Shannon. Just like you said, Ocho, we can talk about the Cowboys, we can talk about the Lakers. Like, there are these things that hit. And so I understand the idea that the WNBA may not have been drawing the same numbers that it is now 3 years ago. But again, two things can be true. That doesn't necessarily mean that those women, prior to the arrival of this rookie class, were still not worthy of coverage.
No. I don't disagree with that. The league was not worthy of watching until now. I'm not going to say not worthy of watching, but they're ushering in a new time with new talent that's ushering in new opportunities and ushering in new deals, which is bringing in more casual fans, which is allowing more opportunities for people to discuss and watch and have takes on the game. Truly, there's been plenty of talent in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is not the best player in the WNBA. And you were fool to think that she was going to come in here and be that. Now, she's plenty talented, but she's going to have to go through her growing pains, just like any other player in the WNBA. There's plenty of talent. There's still players fighting to become all-stars and fighting to win a championship. I don't want to say nobody cared because that's not true. You know what I mean? Plenty of people were watching the WNBA years ago. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need that. I think the timing is just right. We're starting to see the tick in the game styles in basketball, period. From the college game, we're seeing things move differently in how the players are handling college. We're seeing how the players are handling the pro game differently because now you have NILs. Everything, I think, has contributed to where the game is at today. Not solely just Caitlin Clark came in and then, no. There's plenty of things that fell into fruition. Coop,